Switch on. Okay, in the last week, if somebody participated in my former lecture, some introduction for the newcomers. Basically, as a scientific research, the first step for understanding some topic necessary realize and define the basic concept. If you will see my former lectures, I try to define the basic concept and I try to define the antecedents, the precursors of environmental thinking. One direction, civilization background, it's a Greek heritage and a Judeo-Christian heritage, it's a civilization background. And secondly, the most important scholars of environmental thinking. First, we are over. But the second step of rational scientific cognition define the methodology. Because the standardized methodology, the guarantee for usable scientific results, conclusion. And a basic problem with environmental thinking that for long term, even until the middle of 20th century, everybody agreed the physical environment, the climate, and for example, biosphere and the soils, everything, the ecosystem never changed. Like, for example, on the theater, the background, behind the stage. No change, nothing. And the first step for understanding the importance of ecological thinking necessary to realize are environmental changes. And the last lecture, I try to show how verified, first step, natural science, natural scholars, natural scientists, the variety of environmental change. And this was almost the last slide about the isotope analysis. Isotope analysis basically founded two proportion between two versions of oxygen. Oxygen 16 and oxygen 18. Oxygen 18 formed in consequence of warming. Its warmer period much higher the proportion and colder it's a lower one. Therefore, for example, in ice cover of Greenland, thrill and take a sample from the huge ice cover, the glacier, the continental glacier, and reconstruct it for more 1,000 years. This is the sample. You can see how changed the structure of the sample of ice and reconstructed the change of isotope analysis and reconstructed the temperature. Therefore, in consequence of oxygen reconstruction, realized that the temperature in the historical past changed. A little bit boring, but unfortunately, the verifying of theory not usable without standardized methodology. And the second one, a glacier. Somebody walk on the surface of glacier? Somebody? In which area?
In Iceland.
Iceland. Yeah, but in a continental area, the Alpine glacier, it's able to demonstrate. A glacier is a frozen river. Function quite similar manner than the rivers. It's follow the gravity and moved by the gravity, but the nature and the speed much slower. For example, a flowing speed of glacier on, for example, 100 meters per week. It's very slow. And the size of glacier demonstrate a basic elementary condition of climate. For example, warmer period melting back and colder period increase the size. Why so easy to reconstruct the size of glacier? Somebody lived in Switzerland or Austria? Nobody? There is a personal knowledge about the kettles. No? Okay, it's a guess. You can estimate how many liters of water drink by kettle. One kettle. How many liters?
A day? Or a day, or in what?
A day, of course. Not very easy. Unbelievable. How many liters?
4.
One kettle.
7.
7 liters.
4.
4.
8.
60. not 16, 60, huge quantity, because the size of cattle, it's a Middle Ages and early modern time, much smaller one, cattle, because it's modern time increased the size in consequence of breeding, but the classical, traditional cattle, huge quantity of water. And if you walk, for example, alpine region, a cattle grazing on the very high area, and how able to find a drinking place for them. It's a glacier. When arrive the snow line, it's a melt. It's transformed to a small water flow. An ideal place for huge herd of cattle for drinking. Therefore, on the snout of the glacier formed, for example, a stable for the cattle and shepherd hut and so and so. And on the time of change of climate, increase or decrease the size of glacier, the contemporaries realized, because it's uncomfortable situation. If increase the size of glacier, destroy the stable and the hut of shepherd, and other side necessary to follow, it's a melting back. Therefore, the glacier chronology very easy to reconstruct with help of contemporary documentary sources. Okay, if we are looking, for example, how change Gorner Glacier, the longest glacier of Austria, we can follow how changed. Climate change never means whole, for example, it's a modern manipulation, became colder and warmer. It's changed the climate and we can divide to warmer and the colder period. For example, this is the, it named Red Ice Age period, the last closed climate period of human history. But on that time had colder and warmer period similarly. Therefore, glacier, it's very sensible indicator of climate changes. And for example, this is a reconstruction of glacier on the alpine area. It's quite near to the small city, and the contemporaries reacted to change of glacier very sensible manner. Okay, this is the glacier, Gorner Glacier, and this is other diagram about the change of glacier, reconstructed by natural scientific methods and the contemporary documentary sources. The next methodology and the next source of climate reconstruction, the sediments. It's a geography. This is the research field of geography. Sediments may be river transported sediments, wind transported and glacier transported, and place of accumulation may be sea, ocean and lake. Look at, for example, this is the Rhone River. Rhone River flowing into the Lake of Geneva, and you can follow the color of river. Probably you know the foreign student. There is a general mention about the Tisza River, which is the color of Tisza River. You vote on the riverside, I suppose. Which is the color?
Brown.
Brown?
Yeah, dark. Yeah, it's a brown. Yeah.
Brown?
Dark brown.
Brown? Yeah, but official, it's a possible exaggeration. It's named a yellow Tisza. Yellow. It's a brown, yellow, it's quite close to each other. Why? Because the floating sediments so high on the water that change the color of river. This is the same situation in the case of Rhone River, and flowing into the lake and falling down the sediments. And you can see, for example, here a diagram of sediments. And rainy period increase the quantity of sediments, and drier period, drought period, decrease the quantity of sediments. Why? Because the flowing energy change following the quantity of rain, quantity of precipitation. Okay, very interesting, the fauna analysis. Why? Because small mammals, the rodents, react very sensible manner to the climate change. For example, if we are looking at Szeged, somebody visited in Serbia, in the Balkan Peninsula. Balkan? Nobody? Nobody traveled to Serbia? You visited in Serbia?
No.
No, because somebody, foreign students know which is the distance to the boundary of Serbian Republic. How long?
Because,
5 kilometers. 5 kilometers. For example, when I missed, for example, travel from Budapest, and I disoriented by my thought and drove on the highway and realized this is the boundary yet, because I missed the driving out from the highway. It's very close. Moreover, a volcanic area, it's basically different. And vegetation, partly, and the fauna of volcanic area arrived to the area of Szeged. Why? For climate change. The climate became warmer and warmer, and the mammals, and the insects, and the plants moved northward. The rodents, very sensible, but not only the rodents able to move, not only the animal able to move, but even a forest able to move. It's possible, I told you. How moving a forest? No? I didn't spoke about it. Okay, look at, for example, oak rodents. It's an oak rodents. This is the longest living tree of European continental fauna. Oak. And there is an oak forest, and oak forest strike, for example, a warming. Which is the reaction of forest for warming? Escape northward. Escape northward. But the roots is fixed the trees to the soil. How able to escape a forest? The reaction of oak forest, the new growing trees appear in the northern boundary of tree, and the southern boundary is drying out. And there is a speed of forest 1 kilometer per 40 years. This is the action radius of the forest. Even one forest able to move 1 kilometer per 40 years. If the climate change is quicker, drying out whole of the forest. But even a forest able to move, for example, in the global warming period northward. But other period when the climate became colder, other direction moved the forest. And a Hungarian scholar, it's a Kordos, reconstructed a change of fauna of rodents. How? You know the night birds. Night birds is hunting during the night. And which is the most important prey animals, generally are mice and generally the rodents. And the rodents are a lot of different subspecies of rodents, very sensible manner to climate change. Each of species of rodent, there is an optimal average temperature of June, because I don't know why, but June or July, I am not sure, but some summer month average temperature, this is the indicator. And which is the peculiarity of night bird. Hunting during the night and turn back to the nest and vomit the skin and the bones. For example, in the inner courtyard of this faculty, living 4 birds, 4 night birds all. And if somebody is sitting on the seat, it's a little bit dangerous, because night birds, after the hunting, take a vomit. But on the surface, for example, rain and other physical forces destroy the accumulation. It's cancel the accumulation of the vomit. But inside of the cave, some bird take the nest inside of the cave, a closed and covered area, a vomit accumulate generation by generation. In consequence of that, it's possible reconstruct how changed are different species of rodents in the hunted mammals distribution. And Kordos reconstructed the change of fauna inside of the Carpathian Basin, which demonstrate well that a climate changed a lot. It's other way of regeneration. Probably you know the pollens. It's a pollens, it's contain each of flowering plants and the most optimal and very long life, long living material, 20 or 20,000 and 25,000 long, able to save the classical form of pollens, which reconstruct a palynology. And the most optimal places for pollen reconstruction are the marshlands, because the marshlands, a water-covered area, function like a tramp for the pollens. And drilling, taking a sample from the marshland, it's possible to reconstruct how changed our vegetation. Look at, for example, it's 40,000 years ago closed the last ice age, which was the vegetation spruce, you know, which is the one kind of the pine. It's a spruce vegetation. Later appeared the frondiferous forest, ash, elm, and oak, and later the grass, different form of the grass. Therefore, this is the profile of warming from the closing period of ice age until the recent global warming. With help of pollens, we can verify that the climate in the past changed. And finally, are man-made sources. The contemporaries before the Industrial Revolution lived in the space, in the natural space. Therefore, reacted very sensible manner to the environmental changes. This is the different kind of reconstruction, individual documentary sources, narrative sources, personal correspondences, economic sources, because the farmers who lived in the landscape were very sensible how change, for example, the harvest. This was the basic condition of survival for them. Okay? And man-made reconstruction, institutional, this is the types of reconstruction, book of accounts, official letters, ship logbooks, systematic methodological observation since the time of Enlightenment. And how we can, it's very interesting, it's possible a little bit boring, but according to methodology, it's a crucial innovation was in the last third of 20th century. How we can transform a descriptive sources to time series. This is the technology. It's a weighted indices method. For example, we have a huge quantity of narrative sources. For example, it's frozen over one river, other information, it's very rainy, September, and so on and so on. And this is the methodology of transformation. This is the scale. Extremely cold, extremely dry, -3. 0 is a normal. And +1, +3, extremely warm, extremely wet. A huge quantity of narrative sources taken into these methods, and finally we are able to make documentary sources which we can use before the instrumental observation. Therefore, the scale of reconstruction increased. Not only about the 20th century we can tell information, but even about the Middle Ages. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this course, environmental history and the climate is actor of the history. Not only the background, actor. A climate change, and I try to verify majority of my course with help of case studies that it's true. A climate and physical environment influenced the possibility of contemporaries in the antiquity, in the Middle Ages, as even in the recent time. Okay. we are over the methodology. Look at this problem of space and look at the problem of time. Look at first the time. The time, define the time, it's not so easy. Therefore, we can approach to the measurement, to the timing of the time. The first timing system, first calendaries in the human history were a sun and moon calendaries, based astronomical experiences. You can tell we are using in the Euro-Atlantical world sun calendaries. But you can tell example to moon calendaries. Moon calendaries. No? No moon calendar?
The Islamic calendar is more.
Which one?
The Islamic calendar.
Islamic calendar. The classical Islamic calendar, a moon calendar. A little bit more simple because the rhythm of moons is more regular compared. But the oldest Chinese calendar and the Jews calendar. And very interesting, if international comparison, a sun calendar is a minority. But in consequence of dominance of European culture, it became not universal but a global calendar, a sun calendar. Okay, the second one, a vegetation period. After the agrarian revolution, introduction of agriculture increased the importance of vegetation period and the seasons, and the liturgical hours. How many times necessary to pray in the Muslim tradition?
5.
5 times. In the Christian tradition? How many times?
Once per week. Christian.
4 times. Not recently, because recently we are a hobby Christian. If we have a free time and a God, we can meet on the church. But in the traditional Christian heritage, a traditional world, because a lot of differences between the Muslim heritage and the Christian heritage depend on the phase of modernization. In former lecture, I told to the student that, for example, my mother who lived in the traditional world, never left the building without veil. Because wearing a veil, this is the traditional sign. And my father never left the building without hat. Because this was the closing gesture of the taking the cloth. Because the modernization, not by chance, a modernization that first revolt against the traditional world, it's a missing the hat and missing the veil. It was a gesture of modernization and revolt of modern world against the traditional rules. Okay, the liturgical hours. Because it's very surprising that how many times, 5 times, no, in the traditional world, it's a Christian people 4 times pray by day. This is the normal rhythm. It's wake up 2 times on the day and before going to the bed. Okay, the mechanical clocks. Where appeared the first mechanical clocks? Which civilization constructed the first mechanical clocks? My guess. Of course, Chinese. The second one, Korea. And only the third, the European civilization. Okay, but other peculiarity of mechanical clocks, the first generation of mechanical clocks turn one part right to left, other part left to right. And on the time of Enlightenment, standardized that determine direction of the clocks left to right. But if you will visit to Prague, capital of Czechia, Czech Republic, one district, a Josefov. Somebody visited in Prague?
Yesterday I went to Prague, but I didn't know that.
Okay, if you repeat your visit, you have to go to Josefov district. Some public mechanical clocks, which constructed in the early modern time, turn other direction. And the uninformed tourist is very surprising. 2 o'clock and recently 1:30. How happened? Turn other direction and didn't realize the scale. So mechanical reaction, so spontaneous reaction. This is the official, but some area before the standardization of the direction of the clock survived as local touristical peculiarity. Okay, which are and which were the measuring tools? Sundial, it's a simplest version of the clock. Take one stick, and there are two weaknesses during the cloudy weather, and during night it's not able to show the local time. The water clock, you know, it's two barrel flowing in and back, and there is a scale. And the incense burner and the candle used in the Asian and European civilization as timer. Somebody know the movie of Ip Man? Ip Man? Ip Man is it's a kung fu movie. I like it. For example, if I'm ironing during the late night, looking at a kung fu movie help a lot for work, because it's very aggressive and cruel and increase the how the name is testosterone, and much easier to working during. Okay, incense burner. Ip Man was a master of Bruce Lee. You know the name of Bruce Lee. It's very famous American kung fu movie star. And the school of this kung fu direction founded in Hong Kong. It's great place of kung fu schools and direction. And the style of kung fu fighting in Hong Kong, it's well organized. Each building has a round table, and two warriors jump to the round table, and incense burner light, and when burn down the incense, if one fighter left on the round table, he was the winner. If both, it was equal. Therefore, incense burner functioned like a timer. And, for example, in Christian monastery, use the candle on the time of prayer. Because if somebody had a lot of sin performed, take one candle and until burn down, this was the time of praying and ask permission of the God. And finally, I spoke about the mechanical clocks. Good. But look at the history. How looking the history to the time. A history and a historian of 19th century thought about the time as linear. What mean the linear? Linear mean that it's follow on the same trajectory from the early human evolution until the recent time, toward the future. This is the linear. Each of nation, each of folks following same highway, same trajectory. Lived, for example, in early human evolution and later antiquity and Middle Ages and modern time and to the future. This is the same trajectory. And the second one, irreversible. Irreversible means from the recent time only one way out to the direction of future. No chance for going up, going back to the past. No machinery of time, only to the direction of future. If somebody happened, it's done. It's over, it's closed. And the last one, cumulative. Cumulative means it's increased. Imagine the 19th century scholars that the history, a huge and a giant puzzle. Each human needs one piece on the puzzle. And the function and the mission of the historian, taking the puzzle, the human needs on the right place. And finally, we are able to realize huge picture of human history. This was the concept of 19th century. But at the turn of 19th and 20th century, a new time concept appeared by economists. There is a student from economic faculty, no? No? Economic faculty? Faculty of Economics, no?
Yes.
Yeah, no problem. It's no any bad consequences of that. But very important to realize that the new time concept introduced by economists. Why? Because on the period at the turn of 19th and 20th century proliferated whole of the world the stock of exchange, the bourse, stock of exchange is much better, which is the most important why the best and the most important places of modern time, the stock of exchange? Because it's possible to earn huge money. How able to earn huge quantity of money? Able to forecast the future. How possible to forecast the future? Two methodology are. The first, a modeling. Which is the modeling? The simplest type of model, the Coke automat model. Take one coin and receive bottle of Coke. But majority of modeling are a little bit more complicated, but this is the mechanism. Take one operation, receive some result. This is the modeling. Other one, a long-term, long-time series analysis. And realize the economists that to the end of 19th century, founded the most important statistical offices, statistical institution, and so on and so, and collected huge quantity of elementary information about production of agriculture, production of industry, salaries, transport, and trade, and so on and so on. And the contemporaries, with help of time series analysis, try to reconstruct what will happen on the future, and realized that in economic processes there are a rhythm, a change, a cycles. And if somebody, for example, buying bill of exchange on the low rate of price and selling high, a huge quantity of money. Probably you know the movie of Wolf of Wall Street. The same technology. Earn money, selling highest and buying lowest price of bill of exchange. And the first generation of cycle reconstruction, not by chance, were economists. Kitchen, it's a British scholar, reconstructed 40-month long cycle. Juglar, it's a French scholar, 6 to 8 years long cycle. And Nikolai Dmitrievich Kondratyev, it's a Russian scholar, reconstructed the longest one, 40 to 60 years long cycle. Turn to that direction of history and to the problem of cycle. And the French historical school and the representatives of French historical school realized that not even in the modern time, but on the historical past, had a cycle. And the most important and the best known cycle theory introduced by a French historian, Clement Brodel. It's named a secular cycle. Look at a short survey about secular cycle changes. Basically, Brodel reconstructed how changed a world economy system. One cycle, according to the approach of Brodel, which used basically the Kondratyev concept, we can describe one cycle with help of three information: starting point, turning point, and closing point. This is the whole economic cycle. Starting, turning, and the closing point. Look at the first cycle of global economy. This is the middle of 13th century. Why? Because European economy was able to produce surplus for trade, not usable, not function, without surplus. A turning point in the middle of 14th century, the age of Great Plague. Great Plague, you know, it's a medical faculty probably. You studied in the for example, virology, in the studies of virology, a Great Plague. You know that a plague, which kind of infection? Because three types of infection we know, the bacterial, virus, and fungi. Which one are plague?
Virus.
Bacterial. It's a bacterial infection, and very dangerous according to experiences, because on the 14th century population of Europe, 90 million, and 40%, more than 1/3 died for 7 years long period. This was the deepest humanitarian catastrophe whole of European history. Therefore, this is the turning point. And the closing date of third cycle, the beginning of 16th century. Why? Because this is the time of great geographical discoveries. Great geographical discoveries and discovery of new world, not only onto the direction of Americas, but onto the direction of direct Asian sailing way, turning the southern part of Africa. Okay, closed, first cycle. You look at the second one, the starting date same like the closing date of the first one, and the turning point is the middle of 17th century. Why? Because on the Middle Ages the richest area of world was Mediterranean area. Italy, Pyrenean Peninsula, Iberian Peninsula, generally Mediterranean area. The Mediterranean area is down, and rising up, rose up, Atlantic Ocean. And the coastal area of Atlantic Ocean. This is the turning point. The rate of European economy moved northward. Okay, the closing date is middle of 18th century. Why? Because this is the dawn of industrial revolution and the political revolution which appeared in the French Revolution. Appearance of nationalism, appearance of equality, a social and a legal equality. It's a new word, because very important to mention that the nation, the national identity and the language and the culture in the former period, on the time of empire, is not important. Look at, for example, a Mongolian empire. A Mongolian empire was the greatest empire, whole of the human history. It's a larger compared with the British Empire. And it wasn't a Mongolian empire, it was the empire of Genghis dynasty. Therefore, the role of dynasty in the former time, before the nationalism, much more important. Much more important. Because, for example, in the Hungarian history, for the Hungarian student, there is a special category, a Hungarus. It's a Latin word, a Hungarus. A Hungarus, no meaning about the language and the culture. Hungarus is citizen of Hungarian kingdom. No more meaning. Maybe German, French, Serbian, everybody. Therefore, empire was the frame of state, not the cultural identity. Okay, and the language. This is the turning point, and the next one, the third cycle, it's a turning point, is the closing period of Napoleonic wars and proliferation of nationalism. A proliferation of nationalism. And very interesting, this period. I don't know, for example, what happened, similar processes in foreign students' country, but for example, in Europe, it was a very interesting period. Everybody had to decide, I am German or Hungarian. And for example, in the Hungarian history, named the greatest Hungarian. It's a Count István Széchenyi. He wrote his diary German because knew much better German than Hungarian. But he decided, I would like to be Hungarian. It was a decision. It's a decision. Because in the former time, it was quite general that the people was bilingual or multilingual. Because the language, it was a device for communication. No more meaning. Recently, for example, if somebody in minority status speaking in the minority language is dangerous. It's dangerous, maybe. Because the language contains a political meaning. In the former time, on the time of empire, no problem with that. Okay, this is the turning point and the closing date of third economic cycle, the last decade, peaceful decade before the First World War. And because at the beginning of 20th century started the chain of local wars. Local wars in Northern Africa, local wars in Balkanic Peninsula, and so and so. And slowed down the world to the First World War. And the Second World War, which partly a consequence of the first one, And the turning point is the middle of 70s on the 20th century. Why? Because the greatest recovery which happened whole of the human history from Australopithecus to the 20th century unfolded after the Second World War. Look at why. If we are looking, for example, how changed the population of the whole of the world on the starting date of Christian calendar was 2 or 300 million. This is the starting date of Christian calendar. Sorry for that. I'll find the chalk here. And this is the first. At the beginning of 19th century, the population of whole of the world, it was 1 billion according to American English, 1820. The last year of Second World War, 1945, 2.5 billion. And at the end of 20th century, 2000, it's 6. Look at how this was the greatest economic and demographical jump all of the human history. Doubled, more than doubled the human population. And economic growth on this decade was unbelievable, quite continuous. Therefore, when first crisis appeared after the Second World War following recovery, this turned down the global economy. This is the background of us, but if we are looking and accept the conclusion of Fernand Rodin, recently the global economy is down. But there is a basic axiom of Buddhism, you know, the majority of pain we are created for ourselves. Therefore, our pain, not a consequence of the physical environment and social environment, we made us the pain, the majority of pain. Why interesting? Why interesting for us this cycle in the history? Because we are living, for example, up period. This is the normal situation. We are living in the down period. This is the normality. Look at, for example, some generation, my mother's and my father's generation lived on the time of Second World War and lived on the street the dead bodies. This was normalities. This was the normalities. And my generation, who fortunately I hope it's left into the future, never left killed body on the street. But my father generation and my grandfather participated in the Second World War. And killing man, day by day, it was a routine. It wasn't a special operation, it was a routine. Therefore, it's a cycle theory able to describe that generation by generation, the scale of normality might change deeply. Okay. But if we are looking at the history, it's long term, we can realize it's a linear, irreversible, and cumulative. If we are looking, this is the green line, this is the exponential growth. If we are looking at the world population, as I try to demonstrate, there is a chart, it's a 6 million, and recently, it's a 2020 to 24, it's a 8 according to estimation. No census about it, but it's quite reliable estimation. If we are following the trajectory, like a green line, exponential growth, will continue. It's a linear, irreversible, cumulative. If we are looking at the starting position, for example, later I will speak about 74,000 years ago, the human population estimate to 5,000. Whole of Africa lived only 5,000. In consequence of Toba volcano eruption, it's located in Indonesia, and it's made a very, very harsh climate change and huge drought whole of the Africa. Therefore, humans was on the doorway of dying out. This is the starting position. And recently, 8 billion. My question, my guess, will continue this exponential growth or not? My guess. We can vote. Who vote on the side, yes, we'll continue the exponential growth? 1, 2, 3. Okay, other student? The question was that we'll continue world economic, world population growth or not. 3 students from the audience vote on the side, we'll continue. It's very optimistic or pessimistic, depending on the approach. You are not opinion necessarily, only organize the basic condition of survival in the eastern part of Europe. I am not opinion. No subject which I have opinion. Only I would like to survive and go into the pub and relax and so. Okay, no, won't continue. Why? Not because the resource problem, because recently it's very popular that we'll expire the fossil fuel, we'll expire the, for example, agrarian production and so on. It's not true, not true. Because recently there is agrarian surproduction. More than able to consume the local population. For example, in the case of Hungary, only we are consuming as a bread or any other basic foods, staple foods, only 10% of cereal wheat production. Any other eating by animals. Only 10%. No resource problem, the most fragile element. But the basic question is a modernization. How we can describe the modernization? Modernization we can describe how change fertility and mortality. If we are looking at the historical past, at the beginning of this lecture I spoke about why is so important the history. Because it increases the size of memory. We can think not only on the basis of our experiences, but the basis of experiences a lot of generation. And the good practice and the bad practice we are able to use it. Look at the diagram. If we are looking at the diagram, this is the time. It's a x axis. It's a time. And this is the scale of fertility and mortality. Traditional time, the fertility and mortality change around 40 per 1,000. It's per 1,000 mean calculated 2,000 persons. On the traditional time, fertility changed around, this is the scattered line, this is the fertility. Changed around 40 per 1,000. And the continuous line is a mortality. If mortality is higher, decrease a little bit the population. If fertility is a higher one, increase. But it's been a traditional stability phases. Very high are infantile mortality. For one adult necessary to birth. Because the infantile mortality was 50%. Every second baby died before the 10th anniversary. It's traditional. For example, my mother told me stories about the beginning of 20th century, how many sisters and brothers died in the village for weakness of medical services and a lot of other traditional reasons. This is the traditional phases. But at the beginning of 19th century, improve the agrarian practice, improve the transport. It's very important because if, for example, local situation, a local area, no good harvest, the local people lived in shortage. The people became fragile for the infection. But after appearance of railway network, it's very easy to transport one place to other. Therefore, it meant food security improved, and the modern agriculture with fertilizer and pesticide decreased the mortality. But the fertility left quite high. Why? Because in the traditional society, the children are workers. It's a member of a household. I remember I was 8 years old. I lived a little bit in the traditional time. I worked together with my mother and with my father. For example, I was a shepherd. Not so much animal, only I followed one cattle. It's possible I told you a story that my mother was very nervous because I speak a lot with my cattle. I didn't spoke 1 or 2 hours. But this is the evolution. Recently I teach at the university. I can able to follow the trajectory. But on the time I speak with the cattle. It's very good, very calm. The cattle, the cow is very calm animal. And there is I don't know the good and the perfect term in English, but there is a very special digestion of cattle. There is a chewing, because necessary to chewing 2 times the grass, because it's a little bit complicated. And the chewing is very calming operation, like a metronome. Bum, 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 bum. And it was a relaxed, not a Buddhist version of the Himalaya, but it's a local people in the eastern part of the Hungarian plate. And turn back to the story, the children, it's a work power, it's a social security of poor people. Why? Because no pension. Therefore, the survival of old parents need a lot of children, because half die. And it was a value, a working value for the children in the traditional time. Therefore, the fertility after the improving of transport and the food security and any other innovation left quite high. But a little bit later stabilized much lower level, around 10 per thousand mortality, and started to decrease fertility too. Why? Because increase the population who are living in urban area, like you. And the lifestyle and the function of children changed basically. Why? Because appeared the mandatory education. Therefore, children transform from the work power to the expense of the family. Moreover, security of survival for medical operation and improving of medical services decrease the infantile mortality. Not necessarily overestimate the birth, because in traditional society, necessary to produce at least double quantity of birth for rate of survival. Decrease the fertility and stabilize somehow around 10 per thousand. This process named a demographical transformation. First phase is a traditional time. A traditional time is high mortality, high fertility, and minimal growth or minimal decrease. The second phase, quite stable of fertility, but decrease very quickly the rate of mortality. And this is the deepest period of economic growth. The second one. And the third period decrease fertility and stabilize the mortality. The population decreased, but the generation by generation, the surplus decreased. And finally, the fourth phase is a modern stable condition, low fertility and low mortality. Some period more, some period less fertility or mortality, in consequence It's decline or grow the population. Each of modern society transform in the demographical transition. Recently, 1/3 of global population living in modern countries, over of demographical transformation. Each of European countries, Americas, northern part of Americas, and some part of South East Asia. But 2/3 of other part of the world in the second and the third phases. Therefore, temporary growing, but if we're over of demographical the transition, will stabilize much lower level the fertility. According to demographical estimation, the global human population will stabilize between this data around 12 or 16 billion large population. Therefore, no endless demographical growth will stabilize somehow. The second one, energy per capita. Energy per capita. If we are looking the early human evolution, used only somatical energy, no more. Later, after invention of agrarian revolution, appeared the domesticated animal, growth power of domesticated animal, and the simple tools, engines like windmills and water wheels. But very important to mention that before industrial revolution, a proportion between human power, human somatical energy, and the growth power of animal and the simple engines, the proportion 70% came from the human power and only 30% from domesticated animals. Why? Because you have a practice with animals, horses and cats, who are living together with animal. Free cats. Recently, it's a decline because during my childhood in village, I lived together a lot of animals, no elephants and hippopotamus, but the upper one is the horses. And probably you know there are two animals, which no real animal, but between the animals and the humans. Which animal? Between the human and animal, halfway.
Like centaur? Like,
So,
like, is it like
I
mythical? I think it means an actual animal, but they're not
actual.
used as a...
Which animal? Which animal? We domesticated animal, both two animal,
Cats and dogs.
or the halfway. Not a cat, not a cat. A cat is a very interesting example of the cat. The cat, according to theories, like a pigs, domesticated themselves.
Oh.
Therefore, joined to the humans for double advantage. It's a friendship with benefit. Why? Because if we are looking, for example, a relation between domesticated animals, recently, if we are looking, how the name is, it's a weight, according to weight. According to weight, it's whole of animal, including the humans, one third of weight of beings, not human, beings, 1/3 is human body, 1/3. It's calculated the elephants and the hippopotamus and everything. 1/3 human body in the biosphere, continental biosphere. It's a whale is not calculated and the fish. 1/3. 1/3 are domesticated animals which eating and somehow participating in the human life, and only 5% of animals who are living in natural environment. 5%. For example, tigers in Siberia and giraffe in some part of national parks. And the differences between human body and domesticated animals on the gap, the wild animals who are living in civilized world. For example, rabbits on the radio lands. It's not a natural physical environment. Only 5%. Any other killed by human. Killed by human. Therefore, the genetical variance, one of the weakest and most fragile element of the modern civilization. But turn back, energy per capita. Energy per capita before industrial revolution dominated by human power, but in consequence of industrial revolution activated the fortune of geological fortune. It's been coal and other fossil fuels like how the name is oil and nuclear power. But consequence of modernization of energetical system, the human became a similar, like a geological power, like an earthquake, like a volcanoes, like a cycle on the atmosphere. Therefore, on the hand of power, on the hand of humankind, there is the same capacity, like geological forces. Therefore, very dangerous for the stability of global system. And last one, information. Same trajectory follow, a green line, exponential. The first, probably you know the concept of cultural evolution. Not only the physical evolution were, but the cultural evolution. Cultural evolution based that the experience is passed generation by generation. The following generation, not necessary to invent, generation by generation, passed. And the great step, the first of the most important step of cultural evolution, invention of writing, because not necessarily taking into the hand each of information, wrote down the information. And the next one, printing, which invented first in China, of course, and only much later in Europe, but alphabetical system of Europe a little bit simpler compared with the Chinese and Japanese and Korean system. Therefore, transformed much more quickly a global communication. And the last great informational revolution, appearance of cyberspace, and if everybody able to make a personal content to the cyber on the platforms of the cyberspace. Therefore, if we are looking, the information follow the same trajectory. Okay, look at the next one, a space. If we would like to understand the space, open, for example, a historical guidebook. On the historical guidebook, we can realize this kind of the maps, which able to show the distance. If you are looking the corner, upper and lower corner, right or left corner, there is a scale. The scale demonstrates in the real space the distance on the map, what mean, how many kilometers, how many meters. First. The second one, a geomorphology, a surface. Look, you can see it's a map about Czechia, Czech Republic. A green area, a valley or basin area. It's a plain area. And the gray area, a hilly and mountain, brown and mountain area. You can realize, and very important to mention, that the map and mapping, this is a special language. A special language. If somebody is very well educated, able to realize much more information than a simple reader. There are a lot of different maps. For example, a map of public service in the cities, the parks and any others. If somebody well-educated engineers able to realize in 3 dimension the information about, for example, the water park system. Okay, and basically the simple historical guidebook, a political structure. You can able to realize, for example, a history of Germany. A German history unfolded in the frame of provinces, not a state. Unified Germany only the last third of 19th century. Before that, had different independent principalities, Bavaria and Saxony and any others. And very interesting, somebody lived in the Germany, no? It's very interesting because the dialect unbelievable different. And for example, the prestige between the different tribes, German tribes. It's possible I told you a story of Bismarck. No? Bismarck was the chancellor who unified, who organized the unification. He was a Prussian around the Berlin. It's a Prussian, the best. It's a 5-star degrees German. And he read the book of Darwin about the origin of species. Stratford, you know this book. It's a theory of evolution. And in large public, he mentioned, I read the book of Darwin. It's very good work. And I realized who are the missing link between apes and the humans, the Bavarians. It's not so sensible. Bavarians, because the Bavaria is a peasant area. And from the great nobility point of view, stop, Bavaria. A missing link between the monkeys and the humans, to the classical aristocratic orientation. Okay, political structure. But look at the geography. Basically, the discipline of space is a geography. A geography basically describes a lot of space theory introduced by geography. But look at the simplest one. It's described whole of the history according to spheres. Lithosphere, it's a rock surface of the Earth. The second one, a soil, a pedosphere. Why so interesting? Because the size, the global average of pedosphere, half meter only. And the survival of humankind depends on half meter large soil. And the majority of this soil under chemotherapy, not a real soil, under chemotherapy by fertilizer and pesticide. And the hydrosphere, majority of globe covering Earth, covering by, I remember the surface of ocean is 71%, majority is covering by Earth, and first form of life appeared inside of the ocean. Atmosphere is very fragile, it's a thin foliage around the Earth. Moreover, the majority of oxygen and the atmosphere is under down 30 kilometers. If you travel, for example, up to the mountain area, you can change the pressure of atmosphere. And the majority of atmosphere on the down up. And the upper limit of atmosphere estimate around 100 kilometers. And very interesting, the anthroposphere. I think? No. Anthroposphere. Anthropo mean a human, sphere. Anthroposphere mean artificial spheres. The humans make this building, asphalted surface, everything which made a human is anthroposphere. And the size of anthroposphere growing very, very quickly as increase the number of human population. And finally, the noosphere. Noosphere means cyberspace. Cyberspace, some form of artificial space, it's intellectual space around the world. Therefore, this is the sphere theory describe space structure of history. Okay, look at the ecology. And on the focus of this course, there is an ecological point of view. Very interesting, the ecological concept of space. Ecological concept, no hierarchy. In the geography, there is a typical hierarchy. There is a microsphere, medium, microregion, middle region, and macro region. But ecology, looking each part of the world as a unit. Maybe one ecological space, ecosystem, one puddle on the pavement, and whole of the earth. Therefore, analyzed as a unique creation. And the last one is a mental space. A mental space. You listening about the mental space? A mental space, a transformation of space in our brain. There are two peculiarities of mental space. The first one, selectivity. We are not able to remember each detail. No GPS are on our brain. But we are, it's tested a lot of times. Somebody made a mental map. A mental mapping, it's mean everybody receive, for example, a white sheet and necessary to drawing up, for example, the trajectory between the lodging and working place. And very surprising that majority not able to reconstruct. Only the places were necessary to take decision. For turn right, turn left, there is a crossroads, change the bus and change the subway, so and so. Therefore, the people able to remember only the place of decision. Some selection. The second one are emotion. The people are relation to the physical environment according to emotion. Happens something good, it's a happy, it's a bad, it's nervous. I tell you one example from my life. During my education, it's unfolded and happened in the socialist era. Before the Iron Curtain. Everybody know? Can I have? No, okay, no problem. You know what means the Iron Curtain? Iron Curtain is a famous speech of Winston Churchill. Between western and eastern part of Europe, down Iron Curtain. It's separate. No way crossing through the Iron Curtain. There is a fortified boundary, control and so and so. And we might travel to abroad only once or 3 times, 3 years. And there is a very harsh control on the boundary. If somebody smuggled something, for example books, prohibited books, there is a danger closing to the prison. And traveled a lot of time and smuggled different things because no other way to reading prohibited information. And even though we are member of European Union and no real checking on the boundary, my stomach is up when approaching to the boundary. Because I socialized in slavery, in former slavery, and I am not able to cancel. I am approaching the boundary, my stomach up. Because it's called up the former experiences. Therefore, very important, not only a real rational relation are to the physical environment, but emotional too. And look at, for example, a real mental map. This mental map drawn in the first generation of mental map, 1976. Stanley Milgram, American scholar, made in Paris. Somebody visited in Paris? Unbelievable place, unbelievable. My first foreign language was a French, therefore it's a great advantage because the French people don't like to learn any other languages, only French. Therefore, if somebody would like to travel to Paris, it's necessary to learn French. Okay, this mental map, as I mentioned, receive everybody a white sheet and necessary to draw in the crucial and remembering place. The winner is a Seine River. Obviously because it's cut half of the city, not easy to avoid meeting with the Seine River. The second one, outskirts of Paris. Why? Because the downtown is very expensive. Therefore, the majority of people who participated in the test, in the experiment, live in the outskirts, banlieue, as a French name. And the third one, Arc de Triomphe, at the end of Champs-Élysées. It's made by Napoleon. It's Emperor Napoleon. Notre Dame, which burned down some years ago. Tour Eiffel, which is the symbol of Paris. And finally, Bois de Boulogne. Bois means a forest. Forest de Boulogne. Why? 6-1. Which activity located to Bois de Boulogne?
Hiking. Is it forest?
Forest. It's a large park forest area. Some idea? Which activity? Okay, we are shortage on the time. Prostitution.
Oh.
Why so interesting? Because prostitution. Why? Because there is a special category of marketing, intensity of information. Who are the consumers of prostitution? Male. Middle class male. And if we are looking the experiment, participated 50% female and 50% male. The consumer, of course, male. And if we are looking 50% male, 49.1% not only knew this location, but was able to draw the right place. Therefore, if we are looking according to intensity of information, this is the first one. Okay. We will continue in the next occasion with the case studies. We are over the introductory chapters, and we try to analyze and demonstrate which is the importance of physical environment, climate change, and the environmental change unfolding of the history. I ask you patience for some minutes.